A Tootsie Pop is a sucker with a candy center. A famous commercial for Tootsie Pops once asked, "How many licks to the center of a Tootsie Pop?" In an attempt to answer this question, Corey Hyde of Siena Heights University asked 92 volunteers to count the number of licks required before reaching the chocolate center. The mean number of licks required was 356.1 with a standard deviation of 185.7. Find a 95% confidence interval for the number of licks required to reach the candy center of a Tootsie Pop. Round values to 2 decimal places. We can compute the confidence interval by using StatCrunch or formulas in Table 7. Let's use StatCrunch first. In order to input this into StatCrunch, we need to find the mean, the standard deviation, and the sample size. We are told that the sample mean was 356.1, and the standard deviation is 185.7, and the sample size is 92. And we want a 95% confidence interval, so our confidence level is 95%. Now let's go to StatCrunch. Let's go to Stat, T-Stats, one sample with summary. We have that the sample mean is 356.1, so we will type that here. We have that the sample standard deviation is 185.7, so we will type that here. And we have that the sample size is 92, so we will type that here. We want a confidence interval, so we will select this one. And we want a 95% confidence interval, so this should be 0.95. Now press compute, and here we have the lower bound and the upper bound. Rounding to 2 decimal places, we get that the lower bound is 317.64 and the upper bound is 394.56. So we say that we are 95% confident that the number of licks required to reach the candy center of a Tootsie Pop is between 317.64 and 394.56. Now let's find the confidence interval by hand. We use the following formulas to compute the confidence interval. We need to find the values for x bar, t alpha over 2, s, and n. X bar is 356.1. S is 185.7. N is the sample size, which is 92. Now let's find t alpha over 2. First, let's draw a sketch. We want a 95% confidence interval, so the area in the middle will be 0.95. So the area in both tails is 0.05. However, because we want to find t alpha over 2, we need to find the area to the right. So if the area in both tails is 0.05, that means the area in one tail is 0.025. So we want to find t sub 0.025. In order to find this value in Table 7, we also need to determine the degrees of freedom. The degrees of freedom will always be 1 less than the sample size. So this will be 92 minus 1, which equals 91. So we need to find the value in Table 7 that corresponds with an area to the right of 0.025 and 91 degrees of freedom. We don't have 91 degrees of freedom in Table 7, so we will just use the closest value, which is 90. And we find that the corresponding value is 1.987. So t alpha over 2 is 1.987. Now let's substitute the values into the formula. Let's start with the lower bound. Let's substitute the values, type this in your calculator and round to 2 decimal places, and we get approximately 317.63 for the lower bound. Now let's compute the upper bound. Let's substitute the values, type this in your calculator, and we get approximately 394.57. Notice that these numbers are a little bit different from the ones we got in StatCrunch, but either one is correct. So we say that we are 95% confident that the number of licks required to reach the candy center of a Tootsie Pop is between 317.63 and 394.57.